Hey and welcome back to Plug and Play EV. I'm Steve, and today we'll be looking at the ChargePoint CPE250 stations, specifically in their paired configuration when they should be able to deliver up to 125 kilowatts of power. When does that happen? Why isn't it always seen? And can you achieve it on the ideal car to use in this configuration? Let's jump in and take a look at the dual paired CPE250 from ChargePoint. Alright, so new CPE250s. First call out, let's put more of these in places with lovely walking and lake areas and kid play zones. That's always a nice touch. But let's jump into this here, see if we can get it fired up. It's even in its own little kind of section, so it'd be weird to be iced here unless someone was deliberately trying to block them off. Otherwise it's just mud and walking paths next to us. But let's see how this goes. 62.5, the bolt should be maxed out by this, although it's a cold pack, so I would bet not. Contacting the station, and it should just flip up a plug-in sign on the station once that's done. You see that there? And this is a new type of connector. It's a little heavier. Waiting for EV sign. And the thing here is this is shared, so we should be able to get 125 kilowatts on the IONIQ 5. I'll test it out with the Bolt EV first of all. See what we get up to. There's that cold pack limiting it, but let's look inside. Alright, so that's the cold pack. It's around 34 degrees here, so it's not freezing, but we're definitely seeing a slower charge rate because of that. No big deal, just here to test these. But the paired power is not that common. At least around here in Greater Boston. IONIQ 5 with 800 volts pushing, you would expect to get more than the kind of 60-70 kilowatts. In the Bolt EV, the maximum it's going to go up to is 55 kilowatts, so we're not going to max out a 62.5 kilowatt station. So this is never going to be a car that will push these to its limits. Even if there was another Bolt EV plugging in here, we shouldn't see much of a drop off in power, if anything, with the colder pack only pulling the 35 kilowatts here. But we'll come back with an IONIQ 5 and see how these do with a vehicle that asks them to do a bit more. Okay, back to the same spot, this time in the IONIQ 5, and similarly not super low state of charge, but getting down there. So we'll take a look at these guys paired up and see how we get out of 125 kilowatts potential. Do we get that from the paired up stations, or will we still get that sub 100 kilowatts? Not quite as impressive as you'd hoped. Great, let's see how we go. Okay, so I was actually pretty dumb and didn't realize that the battery conditioning mode was not on. So I want to get this right up to a good temperature before I try to charge, because otherwise we'll have to put this on the car, not on the charging equipment. We'll see how long it takes to get it up to temperature, just leaving the car while we walk, and then we'll fire it up on these ChargePoint CPE250s paired and see if we can manage that 125 kilowatt tops, or anything near it would be nice. Okay, and while we're dinking about with battery preconditioning, just for the fun of it, let's confirm that when we do the Android Auto, navigation does turn off the native navigation. So shift that across there. So at the moment you can see we still have an alternative fast charging location plugged in. That's about 18 miles away there, so it's still going to work. Battery conditioning, so there's no smart thing in there that says if you're not moving or if you're not making up the miles to give up, so that's not a big deal. Then if we navigate here though to, let's say, the Burlington area, we get immediately it's shut off, and you can see there's no navigation here. It's going to shut that off because it knows now that this is in Android Auto navigation mode. So turn that off, and then if I go back to what I was doing before, resume route, it's paused it actually, so it hasn't taken everything out, but if I resume route there, it'll calculate it all again. Although maybe you have to put it in drive to get that coming on. I'm not totally sure yet. I'll have to play around with that some more, but you saw that sign pop up. It's gone back to work, although it has dropped down considerably, whether that's because we turned it off or, yeah, it looks like it is. It's going to go back up again. So we'll be pretty close to what we need to be here. So we start the charge on unit 1. Don't know if we can see it in the rear here. We should be able to from the dash cam. If not, it should just flick over to plug in. Okay, I saw that change. So those flash. There you see again, 125 kilowatts DC shared. So in the perfect world, without anyone on this other second unit, we would jump right up to 125 kilowatts. Now we'll see if the battery pack temperature does anything with that. Charging started from the car, so that's just fine. Now we got up to 41 kilowatts on the Bolt. Now that's the Bolt's problem, not the charger. And this might be the first time we actually see success from a paired charger. Happy days. Okay, let's see what the car reports and see how this charge session progresses. This would have started at probably more like 60 or 70 kilowatts in a cold pack, and then we wouldn't really know whether this station was capable of what it needs to do or not. But this shows pretty much that it is. We've got the voltage we need. This is something we'll come on to in a sec here. We're at 150 amps and 720 volts, more or less. And that's going to be key. That's what we're going to have to look at in a sec here as to why other vehicles, if you're outside with the kind of EV6, IONIQ 5, GV60 and Porsche Taycan, then the more expensive ones of EVs that are at that 800 volts, why these stations just aren't going to be quite as successful for you as the 800 volt architecture. But this is the first thing I wanted to do, just confirm we can actually get this on this paired station when nobody else is plugged in. So the limit here is really the amperage. You can see from the label on the unit itself that it's limited to 156 amps and then all the way up to 1000 volts. So in the case of the IONIQ 5 and the EGMP platform, you're going to be able to go up to that 750, 800 volts and compensate for that lower amperage of 156. These CPE250s can use up to 200 amps sometimes, but it's still too low on a 400 volt vehicle, which is going to get somewhere between the 300 to 400 typically. You just don't have that amount of power combining with the lower amperage to make that 125 kilowatt. 12.65 kilowatt hours is what we did in the Bolt EV over the course of about 20 minutes, I think it was, 7 or 8 minutes. We've done the same in the IONIQ 5 here, so we probably won't go all the way to the 20 minutes that the Bolt EV did. Okay, so it looks like we're going to top out just below 120. We've got up to past the 20% level. You can hear that click off. It just goes so fast that you kind of rip through the session. So that was 13 minutes and it managed to crank out almost 23 kilowatt hours. So that is a successful test of the first time we've been to a shared power station for ChargePoint with these CPE250s. Not had the share power and managed to get pretty close to 125 kilowatts.